On behalf of Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, I welcome everybody to this webinar this afternoon on the topic Trends in Social Change from Mid 19th Century to Early 20th Century in Colonial Hyderabad State. For this webinar, we have the honor of having our senior fellow, Professor Y. Vakuntham, with us. He is an eminent scholar of the field, and as we can see, despite a difficult situation, he has agreed to deliver this lecture online. So I welcome him, uh, and I welcome all other participants also. As I said, this is an extremely important subject. Social change took place in Indian states, including Hyderabad, in the 19th and 20th centuries because of a variety of reasons. Now, we know that compared to that part of India which was ruled by the British directly, the states were in some sense, some of the states were more backward, some were more advanced in terms of their social and cultural trends. However, the fact remains that almost all the states, whatever their size, whatever their social and economic conditions may have been, were deeply influenced by the trends in India as a whole, and change, social, economic, cultural, religious, did take place in virtually all the states. However, the specificity of a change in each of the larger state has to be studied properly in order to arrive at any valid conclusions. And that is the task which I believe Professor Vakuntham has set for himself today. Now, we know that Hyderabad was a heavily, what is in common parlance described as a feudal state, which was founded in the 18th century by conquerors who were part of the Mughal nobility. However, the fact is that, as especially because of being a subsidiary ally of the British, there was a large contingent of uh, the British forces in Hyderabad. Moreover, there was a large British establishment, which I believe became one of the factors behind the social change. But the other was the fact or the desire on the part of the various Nizams, starting from Salar Jung I, to adopt some of the what were described as modern practices, modern social trends, etc., etc., in terms of food, dress, manners, language, institutions, in order to adjust themselves to the changing times. And I believe that this is the change that Professor Vakuntham is going to talk about. So once again, I welcome you, sir, to this webinar. And without further delay, now I would like to invite you to proceed with your lecture.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Mishra-ji, I wanted to profusely thank you at the outset. Because of you and Professor Shakti Sinha, or Mr. Shakti Sinha, that I joined as senior fellow. And on Hyderabad, I was working for quite some time, though there are so many aspects which needs to be covered and which needs to be further intensive reading and critical understanding of society was required. But Mishra-ji, and I would like to initially welcome as well as thank you and all other colleagues, Mr. Iqbal and the entire Nehru Memorial Museum staff for giving me this opportunity. And for the last 2 years, whenever I came to Delhi and Nehru Tinmurti, and there was an open welcome, and I could enjoy the stay, and ultimately when collecting the material, interacting with most of you and the other fellows, senior fellows, and all that was a privilege conferred by the Murti for me in this particular situation. But in any case, I chose this particular topic, trends in social change in as far as Hyderabad state was concerned, for three important reasons. One is it is known as a feudal, aristocratic, never allowed any type of change. That is one opinion which has been expressed. Second was, it was also welcoming number of changes that were taking place, particularly after 1800. That means subsidiary alliance. And from subsidiary alliance onwards till Hyderabad joining Indian Union, we could see changes in different fronts. And this particular aspect, which I thought one has to study, because there are quite a few eminent scholars who have done already. It may be Karen Leonard or Harun Khan Sharwani or Professor Sarojini Rekhani, Professor V.K. Baba or Narendra Luther, and a number of eminent people who have done number of works and they have been published. They are in the public domain. So at the same time, this entire Hyderabad society as such, very limited works are there. And particularly when I chose this colonial as well as post-colonial, but post-colonial we are not discussing here any case now, but in the colonial period, as you have rightly put it, Salar Jung first, maybe 1800 subsidiary alliance to Salar Jung. There are two important things which naturally one has to discuss and ultimately see in brief. In 18th century, Hyderabad state was very, very promising and having openings into the sea also, in the sense Bay of Bengal. But in 1758, due to Vijayanagaram Treaty, subsequently Third Karnataka War, and which ended in 1763, and the treaty which has been concluded in 63, which has been ratified by Mughals in 1766, and it has been landlocked. All the northern sarkars have been given to English East India Company. That was one major lacuna or problem that has been faced by Hyderabad state. In social change also, this has very seriously affected in the subsequent period, because it has no access to the NEC for that matter at that time. And then by 1800, as you know, the other developments about the Mysore or the Maratha and the other struggles that were going on in 1800, 1798 in fact, and 1800 subsidiaries. And another thing which has taken place was that special rights have been given to, till such time, Hyderabad, which was independent country, has suddenly become subordinate to the colonial masters. And in fact, in 1758, when Vijayanagaram Treaty has been concluded and the Northern Sarkars have been given to the British, and they openly supported, and in again the so-called subsidiary alliance of 1800, it has consolidated its position as far as the Northern Sarkars and Rayalaseema and other areas which it got from Mysore after defeating in Srirangapatnam and other wars, the Mysore state. Another important thing which one has to understand as far as the social change Nizam has confronted was having access to some area, because now it has been landlocked. So in 1802, the commercial treaty which has been concluded, and in this commercial treaty of 1802, Hyderabad has been given special permission by East India Company to have direct trade and commerce freely from Machilipatnam port, Hyderabad to Machilipatnam and back. This became an issue even in 1940s. That means there was an agreement in 1802, and ultimately that went on and on. And their only access was that directly permitted by English East India Company. But in any case, between 1802 to 1850, this was the feudal system continued. And as a matter of fact, social changes were very, 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 I don't say even existing, it is repression. and it was a war state, in fact. Even Nizamul Mulk and subsequent succession wars. And from 1800 to 1853, also we could see that Hyderabad state was not stably placed, and the administration has been considered as most haphazard. But in any case, the appointment of Sir Salar Jung, that is Salar Jung I, was a big turning point as far as Hyderabad state was concerned. And socially, one has to look into these things. And though one may say socially it is static, but it is not exactly static, but there was both the religious harmony between Hindus and Muslims. And more or less from the mid 19th century till first quarter of the 20th century, we could not see communal rights. And there was a huge, good understanding between Hindus and Muslims and the society at large. But Hindu-Muslim, so the social changes which were established as practices were partial sometimes, and sometimes total, and sometimes it has been accepted or not. But specific changes could not be seen till Secunderabad, where the British or English East India Company established its cantonment, and where 6 battalions of Sipahis and also 500 horsemen have been placed. That is the friendly treaty which was there between Nizam and the English East India Company. These forces were stationed at Secunderabad. And when so many people, that means officials, were staying, they required so many things. So many things, when I'm using the word, they wanted church, they wanted schools, they wanted shops, they wanted paraphernalia for their maintenance. And this has been provided. Therefore, Secunderabad became a model for the Western culture to a greater extent. And ultimately, number of schools have come, and missionary schools. And churches have come, number of churches in this particular part. Subsequently, they have been spread to the other parts of the state. So therefore, here one important statement which I wanted to make, which has come in a paper, that is Guardian, the Daily Telegraph in 1886, that is Edward Arnold, who said that in India, which has contributed immensely over centuries from ancient times to the present. And in India, we could see the developed civilization, and the entire world was to Hyderabad, that means India, and Hyderabad is a part of that. And ultimately, he says that the philosophy of imposing British culture on them, he could not appreciate. At least that paper, which I could get in London, British Library, speaks about it. It is a very elaborate discussion that Edward Arnold made. But in any case, Hyderabad state looks socially static, and any peasants starve, because one important thing one has to remember, 50% of the land was under the Diwani, even at the time of Salar Jung. And even that matter, 60%. And 10% was Serfe-Khas. 30% was under the Jagirdars, Jamindars, and Samstans. And because of this division, and Salar Jung tried to introduce Raitwari system in all the Diwani areas. And there are 2 types of changes that have been introduced. The Marathwada area, which was partly under the Peshwas and earlier under the Maharashtra, and there he tried to introduce Raitwari system in Bombay model. And the Raitwari system which he introduced in Telangana was of Madras model, and that means auctioning, and ultimately asking the Jamindars to take care of, and ultimately the Patels, Patwaris, that means the rights have been conferred, not the earlier auctioning of rights, which was in practice before Salar Jung took over. But that is one thing. At a minimal level, only exploitation to some extent has been changed from individuals who are auctioning and taking to the Jagirdars asking the local officials, Patels, Patwaris to collect the revenue. And ultimately, this collection of revenue has been concentrated, and when rights were unable to pay, the lands have been taken over by them. And the Patels and Patwaris became, because if you see the contemporary literature, in Telugu in particular, there was so much of criticism against Patels and Patwaris who were looting and exploiting and handing over this land to these things. That means a Jagirdari system of new type has come in even after Salar Jung. But one thing is certain, not the so-called Jagirdars where they were having total right, Jannareddy Pratap Reddy or Palvan or Vishnu Ramchandra Reddy and few others where they have 40,000 acres, 40,000 square miles of an area, 1 lakh square miles of an area, and 1,50,000 square miles of an area under their control, and where the Gumastas and themselves have played havoc. And the peasants were suffering, and they have been exploited like anything. But in Hyderabad state, that was not that much one could see. But at the same time, two important things which makes me to mention here were Hyderabad state was known for natural resources. It has huge natural resources, number of rivers, but particularly Krishna and Godavari, and its tributaries were passing through Hyderabad. And as a matter of fact, by 1936, there were about 14 projects have been built, and lakhs of acres of land has been brought under cultivation. And this was the one thing from a war state into a stable state, and a reckless administration into an organized administration of Sir Salar Jung. But Salar Jung tried to do one important thing, which he was successful partially. That is, he wanted to see distance between the British officials' residency and his officials and his own officials. That means Nizam's officials, so that they will not be directly coming under the influence of the English East India Company or the residency. Because if residency officials were in a position to dictate, then he thought it will make Nizam further weak, the Diwan also further weak. Therefore, he was not very much interested in this. But the changes which ultimately took place were not as per the requirement. And here, two things I wanted to again mention, area-wise. Of the 82,000 square miles of an area, 82,698 square miles of an Hyderabad area, Telangana has 43,000 square miles of an area, 43,282 to be precise, and Marathwada 24,829, Karnataka 14,056 square miles of an area, which is as per the state the 1931 census, and which has been submitted to the Indian Economic Conference in 1937, which has been organized by Usmania University at that time in Hyderabad. So from that, I started quoting. But here, 3 or 4 more important points which I wanted to mention was village people continued to be very poor, exploited by every possible organizer. Vetti was there, that is Begari and Bagela, both the things were there. Women have been exploited in the so-called feudal system. And ultimately, new economic forces that means at the time of Salar Jung, new economic forces have come, which could give some relief, at least in Diwani areas. Jagirdari areas, it was not that much could be seen, but in the Diwani areas, we could see a lot of things. 1 or 3 or 4 things which I wanted to mention here. Village people, though, continue to persist, but with their traditional ways, but not any exploitation as far as the state was concerned. Second important thing is Upper Strata was looking for some closeness with the British officials. Upper Strata, when I'm using the word, among the Muslims, among the Hindus and Jagirdars and a few other officials, they wanted to have close relations so that they can get benefits. And many of them sent their children to the foreign countries and so on and so forth. Education was totally backward, unfortunately. Unfortunately, even by 1900 or 1880 in particular, because later on slowly we could see number of schools have come into existence, and missionaries and Britishers started critically looking at the Indian society, particularly society in the cantonment area. And when they were critically looking at them, what are these child marriages? And women have been not sent to the schools, and girls' schools were not many. And ultimately, the society needs some sort of, and missionaries thought they can do something to convert and ultimately make them educated and also provide health, and becomes important rather initiator for the change. Before the middle of the, that means at the same time, we could see British learned social complexities more clearly, and social transformation could be seen, and poverty at one level, and illiteracy, ignorance, inequality, caste, irrationality, oppression, all these things continued. Therefore, they could not do much as far as the changes in this system was concerned, except two important things. One is illiteracy. They started schools, and Urdu schools were there, but mother tongue schools in mother tongue or Kangi schools have been not very much permitted. And Jamindari areas, and there were not many schools at all, but at least Diwani areas, some schools have been allowed. And inequality naturally continued because social movement was very limited, because leaving the village and going to urban centers and all these things could not. But two important things again took place in this particular time was the reforms of Salar Jung. The reforms of Salar Jung includes threefold. One is Salar Jung has brought railways. In 1860s, railways have been initiated. 1861, Public Works Department has been started. 1868, judicial, revenue and police departments have been separated, so that administrative reforms can be, and ultimately more action can be taken. In 1867, Forest Act has been passed. And this Forest Act has been criticized by Hemmendorf and others for two reasons. Because the forests have been thrown open to everyone, and ultimately started cutting the forests, and ultimately the tribals have been rather made helpless, and they have been exploited. And even in the words of Hemmendorf, they say they must have got open to the world and ultimately got very peripheral benefits, but their culture and their tradition has been totally affected because of this Forest Act. But one thing we have to understand, that forests, when the development was taking place for the railway lines, for houses, and for industries, and for all these things, naturally this forest wealth is absolutely essential. And as I said already, water, lot of resources are there. Forest, it has the lot of resources. A huge forest, 12% of the land was under the forest, though average was 15% for the country. And third important thing was minerals. Minerals also, Nizam state was very strong. Very strong when I'm using the word coal mines. Coal mines from Kottagudem to the Singareni. Singareni to up to Illandu, Bellampalli, and number of places, for which actually the plan was changed from the Nizam side in 1944. E.W. Slatter's plan, which I will discuss slightly later for the social change. But another important thing which we can think is ownership of land started with Salar Jung, that is with the Raitwari system. The people in the Diwani area were to some extent satisfactory, and ultimately they were rather, repression has been reduced. I don't say there is no repression, but repression was there, but it cannot be that bad as it could be seen in Jamindari areas. So, but in any case, here two important other changes which can be brought in was in the late 19th century. Again, the Secunderabad cantonment became a model for social change. And one may ask why, what is this model change? I was already telling a critical look at the entire system. And then in 1878, all these officers, resident and his officers and the white people and all of them, they wanted a social club which can be used, the library, swimming pools, and the hotel, or rather the canteens, and the other facilities can be used by them according to their own standards, not according to the local standards. And therefore, in 1878, Secunderabad Club was started. Secunderabad Club was started exclusively for the British people. When most of that means the land has been donated by Salar Jung I. This was at the time of Salar Jung I. And the Nizams, not the Nizams or not Salar Jungs, because Salar Jung has been provided lifelong, his family has been provided lifelong permit to enter into this club. But other Jagirdars and others, they were not permitted. So immediately they went to Nizam, that means Diwan, and from Diwan they went to Nizam, and ultimately they started another club known as Nizam Club in the same year, 1878 Nizam Club. And this Nizam Club, which is very near to Public Garden, that is the present assembly building, and this was totally under again Muslim Jagirdars. The honorary secretaryship of this club from 1878 till 1959 were only under the control of the Muslim Jagirdars and other elite groups among the particular community. So this is another second important thing that has come into existence, which was again a symbol of change that could be seen, which was not there in the district headquarters and Subah headquarters and elsewhere. The third important thing that has again come was because, as I was telling you, education was very backward. Ladies' education was much more backward. Though one Zanana school has come in, and ultimately some schools were coming in this cantonment area for the Christian girls, and other girls also are joining in that. Lady Haidari Club has been started in 1901. Lady Haidari Club. And this Lady Haidari Club was the path breaking, and number of ladies, it may be Amina Haidari, that means wife of later Akbar Haidari, and also Margaret Cousins, who visited earlier, but not exactly during this time. Casson Walker, Sarojini Naidu, and a few others have visited, and ultimately their visit and women were also, just like in Hyderabad, Secunderabad Club, as well as Nizam Club and elsewhere, this became a social forum where they can discuss various things. Here, one thing one has to remember is by 1900, the freedom movement was also on. Indian National Congress was started in 1885, and subsequently we could see Karjan's time, and in Vande Mataram movement slightly later, and ultimately for all these movements in these clubs have been discussed, and the necessity of facilities for the men and women, particularly for women. In Haidari Club, Lady Haidari Club for women, and other clubs, they were talking about facilities for themselves. This is another important thing, which is a trend setter in the initial stage for the social change. And as I said already, in 1866 and subsequently at the time of Salar Jung I, the railways have been started. And for the first time, RTC has been started. RTC means road transport. Road communication has been started. PWD is a separate department which has been created, but the transport system also has come into existence. Therefore, these are the two more changes which has added to the social change and the development of this particular thing. And at the same time, here 2 or 3 more things which I wanted to mention in the early 20th century. Early 20th century, number of reforms again, and the number of restrictions also. For example, 2 Gastis one has to mention. The Gasti number 52 of 1921, which restricted political freedom, and nobody can pass a resolution, nobody can meet politically to demand political rights, and so on and so forth. Similarly, Gasti number 53 of 1929, which has also again curtailed the entire freedom, and the subsequent movements have been not allowed. But these are the two notorious Gastis which has been mentioned, and in each political meeting of the leaders and outside. For example, two or three examples I will mention. The Hyderabad Political Reforms Association, which has been started by Vaman Naik in 1920. This has been not allowed to hold its meetings in Hyderabad state at all. 4 meetings have been held for outside Hyderabad's domains, and along with the Hyderabad Indian National Congress or otherwise. So therefore, so many restrictions have been imposed by them. Similarly, we could see Nizam Rashtrandra Sabha and the Andhra Kendra Janasangam, which was also started in 1922. And this was also practically passing only some resolutions, but never the state has taken seriously. And again in 1930, the Andhra Mahasabha has been started. And Andhra Mahasabha from 1930 to 1946 has been addressed by eminent people of Hyderabad state, the local people, like Survaram Pratap Reddy, father of Survaram Sudhakar Reddy, the present communist leader. Similarly, we could see Mundumal Narasimha Rao, and we could see P.V. Narasimha Rao. P.V. Narasimha Rao was, sorry, at that time was not there, slightly later, 1936, and later he came into prominence because of the Vande Mataram movement and other things. In 1931, Burgul Ramakrishna Rao and his wife, Madapat Hanumanth Rao and his wife, and most of these prominent leaders of Telangana, they were part and parcel of this Andhra Mahasabha. And the two important things, again, we have to accept here. In the 19th century and the early 20th century in British India, and that includes Madras Presidency, number of social reforms were taking place. Veerashlingam, and even Sarar Venkatattam Naidu. And there are also number of other prominent leaders who have taken up widow remarriage movement, and also education for women, and changes in the status of women, and the other reforms which Veerashlingam and others have taken up, like the number of names which immediately I was not in a position to recollect. And here in Nizam state, not even a single such provision has been provided, except two important things. One is the sale or purchase of children have been banned in 1928. Sale and purchase of children. And also they have taken up another important thing which one has to see was the which I will just subsequently I will tell you. So Andhra Mahasabha in its 13 meetings, and this has been followed by Marathwada Parishad, which has had 7 meetings, and Karnataka Parishad, which had 4 meetings, and all these conferences from 1930 Andhra Mahasabha, 1936 Marathwada Mahasabha or Marathwada Conference, and Karnataka 1937. And Karnataka part 4 sessions have been held, Marathwada part 7 sessions have been held, and 13 sessions have been held by the Andhra Mahasabha. But in any one of them, they have passed a number of resolutions for education, for facilities, for right to meet, speak, and address, and all these things, but never a single proposal of social acts have been accepted by Nizam. That was the time when changes were also taking place, because Ittihad al-Muslimin Party has been started in 1927. And as far as Bahadur Jang was there was not much of social conflict. But after 1940, we could see 1935, first communal trouble has started in Hyderabad state. That is the only first one in the 1724 to 1935. But After 1940s, we could see Razakar movement in 46 and later on. That part is separate thing, which we can discuss slightly later. And these conferences have passed number of resolutions, and those resolutions I tried to bring in a brief way. Am I taking more time, sir? So they include all acts should be introduced through legislative bodies. These three organizations passed in their resolutions, all acts should be passed through legislative bodies. Second is Gasti number 53 should be withdrawn. Iyengar committee should recommend for not only representative government, but also representation should be from all communities, not one or two, from all communities. Similarly, we can see compulsory primary education, and VETI should be abolished, local bodies should be strengthened, and child marriages should be banned, and the people in the Jagirs should be provided all protection. Widow remarriages should be permitted, legalized, which were there in 1856. Widow Remarriage Act has been passed in British India, but Widow Remarriage Act could not take any discussion here. Child marriages was never discussed again, and the subsequent number of issues have been never taken up as far as Hyderabad state was concerned. Therefore, social change was very, very limited. But two important things again comes to my mind when I'm talking of the welfare of the subjects is regarding the social education. English education, that means particularly English education has been encouraged, and the elite groups have gone for English education, and the younger groups could not that means the poorer sections in the village sections, they could not get the benefit. In 1912 and 13, there were 2 colleges in the entire state where English has been taught, and the number of students were 139 in Hyderabad state, and secondary schools were 90 only. And in the 90 secondary schools, 16,124 students were studying. Third, primary schools, and 936 where 47,000 students were studying. Special schools, there were only 24, and only 1,500 students were. That means altogether 1,053 English medium schools with having 65,000 students in the Hyderabad state entire thing. So this is again, few elite groups were asking. And in 1886, we could see Nizam College has come, and that one of the famous educationists, Sarojini Naidu, his father, Abhornath Chattopadhyay, was the principal, and ultimately number of teachers, and then English could get some sort of emphasis. But in other areas, it was not that much. In comparison, the data has been given in the 1937, what I was mentioning about Indian Academic Association. And Hyderabad was having, for every 1,000, there were only 38 students. That means 3.8% education. And in Bombay, it was 7%. That is 70 for every 1,000. And in Madras, 75 for every 1,000. And Baroda, 101 for every 1,000. And Mysore, 63 for every 1,000. CP and Berar, 33. That means in all these 6-7 states, Hyderabad was far behind. And that's why anytime when we were discussing about the princely states, and it has been generally said, Hyderabad was very backward educationally, socially also backward. Feudal system was mostly responsible. Jagirdari system and their exploitation was responsible. 30 to 40% of the Jagir areas, hardly there were schools worth mentioning. And in the Diwani areas, yes, Usmania University, one, which is a very prestigious university in the country also, at that time in 1918-19, has been started by Nizam, but not many states, princely states have started. But yeah, another important thing which we could see expenditure-wise was also slowly for the educational development, because education is one major catalyst for the social change. Another is social reform, and education is the another important factor. And in 1900 and 1901, it was only 7.6 lakhs have been provided for English the education in Hyderabad state. But by 1945-46, it has been increased. That means in about 45 years, 141.17 lakhs. That means substantial rise, but equally population also increased. Equally schools have been increased, and people who wanted to go to the schools also increased, and therefore the literates below 10 years, that is, and the data has been given that the literacy of people between 5 to 10 years, and in the state average was 13 for males, 2 for females, for every in the age group of 5 to 10 in 1911. But in Hyderabad city alone, 76 and 38, 76 boys and 38 girls were educated in the age group of 5 and 10. That means cities could get some facilities, but 80% of the villages were totally neglected, more or less. Educational development was very, very poor. Yeah, here and there are, but as a policy, it could not be developed. This is one thing where social change has been to some extent neglected. The second important thing which I wanted to mention, social change which promoted really some sort of change, was the irrigation policy. And Hyderabad, as I said already, was having lot of resources, lot of rivers and tributaries. And of them, that means except in one place, that is Ruti in Marathwada, but the rest of the projects have been built mostly in Hyderabad state, that is Telangana only. The first major reservoir project has been constructed was the Nizam Sagar in 1922 started, 1931 it has been completed. This has brought about tremendous change. And tremendous change when I'm using commercial crops have started. People from Andhra started migrating to this place and ultimately trying to bring in intensive cultivation, including in 1940s, we could see Japanese model of cultivation. That means the paddy transplantation. And then the Bodhan sugar factory has come for the first time in 1937 in this particular under Nizam Sagar. So therefore, it is the one major dam which was responsible for a major change in Telangana. And another important thing which I can mention is E.W. Slater. That means the other things which I am not mentioning because here Pocharam, Paler, Vaira, and Fatehnagar, and number of other projects which have been there were 5,000 acres, 10,000 acres, 9,000 acres, and in some cases even 17,000 acres, for example, in Mane. But all are very limited. But whereas Nizam Sagar was planned for 275,000 acres. And here, three things I wanted to mention. When this has come, not only commercialized agriculture has come into existence, the housing pattern has changed, the dresses have changed to some extent, and the people started cooperating with each other without any so-called caste difficulties, untouchability and other things. Untouchability was not that important or significant when they were working in the fields. So therefore, this was a trend where social change was taking place. Another important step, that means I will not go into the details of all these projects, E.W. Slater's plan. This is called Godavari Industrial and Agricultural Development Plan of 1944. This was again a great turning point. For simple reason, Slater has proposed to Nizam that Hyderabad we are industrializing. Number of industries we are starting. Where is the water? And where is the power? Where these things are not there, major industrial development, how it can take place. So let us move to the place where they are available. That is, Godavari is one river which is very nearby, and ultimately they moved to Godavari and called it as Godavari Industrial and Agriculture Development Plan. For agriculture, Kavalgada and 40 kilometers above at Nanded, another project. 2 water projects have been planned, and here coal exploitation has been taken up, and thermal and hydel power can be brought in, and naturally this can bring NTPC has come there, and fertilizer corporation has come into existence, and Sabad and other stones have been used, and cement factories have come into existence. Because of that, railways and communications have developed, and people started moving for employment and many other things. Therefore, what is important was this irrigation is one, these two dams in particular, as really, that means two major river, and that means reservoirs and rather dams, and the many other dams which have been started for medium level and minor level also has created great impetus for the social change. And naturally, their education and their habits, the people who settled there, their habits also changed substantially. And this is another thing on the eve of more or less Hyderabad joining Indian Union. That means Hyderabad joining Indian Union, when I'm using from 1936 to 1946, there were a number of developments. And 1935-36, as a matter of fact, Government of India Act and Aramudayangar Committee. And then 1946, again, Aramudayangar Committee has, and where they wanted a representative government. And this, on this, political parties have started demanding representative means they should be people's representatives. Hyderabad State Congress has been started in 1937. And Vande Mataram movement has been started in 1937. Vande Mataram, in the name of the famous Vande Mataram, the song has been allowed to sing in Usmania University hostels. All of them have been, those who are involved in, they have been expelled from the university. And it is ultimately Nagpur University which provided shelter. In that, the eminent persons like P.V. Narasimha Rao, I was mentioning, he has been also expelled and joined in Nagpur. And D.V. Rao, that is Devulpalli Venkateshwar Rao, a communist leader, also expelled and ultimately joined there. Achyuta Reddy, a Congress leader, joined there. And P.G. Puranik, a physics professor, subsequently he became a physics professor. He also has been expelled and joined there. Alam Kundmeri, a philosophy professor, he has been also expelled and joined. There are a number of people who were the outcome of this. And from this Vande Mataram movement, Devulpalli Venkateshwar Rao started Comrades Association in 1939. And this Comrades Association became a communist party. And in 1946, this communist party again started this communist armed struggle. So this is at another level politically, which has ultimately brought about social awareness, social change, and ultimately social revolt in the state in 1940s. Though the ban was continuous. Hyderabad State Congress was banned one day before it was about to meet in 1938. And similarly, Vande Mataram movement has been banned and they have been expelled. And as I said already, Hyderabad Political Reforms Association has been banned. And almost all these things were going on. And this is how where one has to very critically look into these things. And press, for example, there were only 11 papers. Golconda Patrika. I have a number of papers which I have xeroxed, and ultimately they are there. And we can see in Hindu Vani and Nilgiri Patrika, Telugu Patrika, and number of Telugu papers which have been. And one of the famous paper, Imroz, which was under the control of Shobullah Khan, he was a nationalist and he has been killed by Razakars. So you can see that the press also tried to play its own progressive role at that time to bring about social awareness and social change in the particular period. I will not take more than another 4 or 5 minutes. And another important thing one has to understand was the Nizam state was, particularly after 1940s, was becoming more communal. And in 1946 and 48, and if we take the statistics of the employment, it was really mind-boggling that they were so communal. In the sense, 10% of the population holding more or less 74% of the employment. That is, the secretaries, for example, 10 people are the Muslims, 1 Hindu, 1 others. Additional secretaries, 2 Muslims, 1 Hindu, and 1 others. Joint secretaries, 3 Muslims and none from others. Deputy secretaries, 9 from Muslims and 3 from Hindus. Assistant secretaries, 55 from Muslims and 8 from Hindus. Heads of departments, 40 are Muslims and only 6 were Hindus. Collectors, 14 were Muslims and 2 were Hindus. And I can give the big list. That means of the 754 posts, only 202 were given to the 84% of the population, and 10% of the population could get 75% of the top jobs. And that was the thing which was going on the eve of the negotiations and India getting rather freedom. But one more point which I mentioned, stop there. In 1946, 47 and 48, on one side, Din Ka Raj and Raat Ka Raj. Din Ka Raj was Razakar Raj. Raat Ka Raj was Communist Raj. And Nehru was dilly-dallying in 1948. And to go for merger or not, or convince them. And there were two major, that means correspondence, which were running into 112 papers, which I have, the original papers, and in 2 volumes they have been published between Nizam and his officials and Government of India. And even army has been withdrawn, and making them to ultimately compromise and come to some sort of conclusion and ultimately joining Indian Union. And he gave 20 crores to Pakistan and negotiated with the cotton for arms, and trying to go about Daman because he doesn't have a port to go out, and also filed a case in UNO, and all types of things, standstill agreement also under pressure. And Patel and K. Munshi, a very strong combination, and ultimately under Jain Chaudhary, and the army has invaded, and ultimately it has been taken over. Just in 5 days, 13th September to 17th September. And in fact, they were expecting much more resistance, and hardly there was any resistance. But in any case, this is one side, political and other things. Social change, till it joined Indian Union, except 2 things, nothing else could, major change has taken place, major reform, major act has been, rather, Sati has been banned, and in Hyderabad state, and similarly purchase of children or selling of children has been banned, except these 2 things, and none of these social reforms. It is only in 1950 and 1948, after police, that means police intervention, and Jain Chaudhary and then Velodi and their administration, some changes have come in, but constitution has been applied to everyone. And post colonial period, we could see a major change in the society, social reforms, and ultimately they got reservations in the local bodies, assemblies, parliament, and various castes, and then the society got rapid change, and educational institutions have been rather established at various places, and people were developed craze for, and ultimately they were also getting good returns in the crops, and ultimately that is how the society, though these 3 regions when trifurcated in 1956 on the linguistic basis of Fazl Ali Committee, these 3 states in their respective areas were still backward. Telangana was backward when compared to Andhra at that time. Karnataka, Hyderabad, Karnataka was backward when compared to Mysore and Karnataka regions at that time. Marathwada was backward again when compared to Maharashtra. That means in many respects, social change was very limited. Hyderabad state was still feudal till the last minute, and it is only the post-colonial Hyderabad we could see change, and the change for the good. And now we could see here optimum utilization of river water, optimum utilization of resources, optimum utilization, and so that at least we will be in the race for development. And that way, Hyderabad was looking for, in colonial period, feudal and so-called Jagirdari system suppressed many things, but on the last communist movement and the subsequent developments and the progressive administration of Jain Chaudhary as well as Velodi, then Gurgul Ramakrishna, who was the first chief minister between 1952 to 56, and could bring about number of changes, including abolition of so-called land reforms have been brought in, and many other things. That way, social change has been constantly going on. I cannot say it's total, but partial it was changing. And in certain respects, yes, it was also changing in a rapid way. and which is certain to happen when there was awareness among the people, both in the countryside as well as in the urban centers. With this, I wanted to thank you for your patient hearing, and also I thank all the staff members who are available, and the two colleagues who were with me to assist in this pandemic season, and ultimately nobody was allowed to enter into the house. And thank you everyone, and thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Probably I must have overstepped, but thank you for bearing with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Vaikuntham, for your very detailed, comprehensive, and enlightening lecture on the subject of social change in the Hyderabad state from the middle of the 19th century to the first part of the 20th century. We are now open to questions and comments. You can raise your hand or directly ask the question.
Question or compliment, I support, they are supporting me, or commenting on that, we are very happy. Because of the time constraint.
Any questions or comments?
So I have so much of data as far as newspapers are concerned and the assembly discussions are concerned, because here only, if they wanted to, I will show the details also. And I could get white paper, and I could get those 2 volumes, which the correspondence in 1947-48 between particularly.
Any questions? Well, let's wait for the questions. In the meantime, I had one question of my own. Now, the Hyderabad state had a rather peculiar composition. Some of its peculiarities were the following.
Yeah.
One, it was a state founded by Muslim conquerors who were part of the Mughal nobility, who migrated from northern India to the region and founded this separate state in the 18th century.
Yes.
And this was obviously one of the reasons that the state was heavily feudalized, because obviously when you migrate from a different region, your roots in the local society are relatively shallow, and you have to be more of a, how should I put it, more of a conquest state kind of thing. So the power of the Nizams, I believe, very largely depended upon the Jagirdars, their nobility, because their military power was concentrated in the hands of their nobility. This was one feature. But the second important feature of Hyderabad as a state was that it consisted of so many language groups.
Yes.
Now, it was based in Urdu. It regarded Urdu as the state language. This was one. But then it had these 3 substantial population groups: Kannada, Marathi, and Telugu. Now, to what extent do you think this peculiar composition of the state, in which there were these 3 important groups, and of course Urdu was the official language, kind of inhibited and restricted the social change and social reform in the state? Do you think there were difficulties in these different groups, these different linguistic groups, in coming together on the question of change and reform in Hyderabad state?
You are right in many respects. Here, 2 important things which I will mention. As far as Marathwada was concerned, the data is there. In any case, if it is required, it can be also read out. The child marriages are much more, and irrigational developments were much less. And Karnataka region, famine prone. In 1910, plague was there. And in Telangana, you have major rivers and ultimately forests also. So certainly there was a problem. But here one important thing is 10% of the population, and that is Muslims. Up to 1884, it was Persian, which was the official language, state language. And from 1884 to 1948, it was the Urdu, which was the official language. In between all these 3 regions, they were demanding for mother tongue in the schools, particularly for promoting girls in the school, it is not the English. Okay, some can go, but ordinary in the villages, it is the Telugu that can, or it is Kannada, it is Marathi that can help, and therefore this was one reason which was consistently demanded, but Nizam hardly accepted. Hardly accepted. In the last phase, they have been given freedom, but not that state started encouraging them as an open platform. This is one reason. Second important, first question which you raised, North India. Most of the Aligarh Muslim University educated people who came here occupied important positions. But others who came along with them were also money lenders. And a lot of money lending was taking place from Marathwada region, Gujaratis, and the other central Indians. And this was another factor where they have been, and if one can read the Kais of Karan Leonard and a few other works, and it can be obviously seen. There, some of the educated people, English educated in particular, because Aligarh Muslim University, and they were occupying important jobs. They know both Urdu as well as English, and here others were entering into the business and ultimately concentrating more on business by the commodities as well as so-called interest and other things. These were naturally, because this percentage is very limited in any case, and this limited percentage cannot hold the change. But for the state, which was not very serious about that. Second, the Muslim authorities, that means these Jagirdars and others, were also not very serious about bringing changes in their Jamindari areas, because, for example, Salarjung is having more than 300 villages, and most of them having 200, 300, 170, and so on and so forth. And 5 Jamindaris which were there, Samasthanas, they were having 200 to 300 villages, and some of them are even 70, 80 villages. And in those villages, the cultural programs were going on, but educational development was hardly existing. So therefore, development to a greater extent stunted because of the type of feudal system that was existing till the last, but not because the variations in the languages and variations in the so-called regional feelings. So they wanted in all these Marathwada Parishad, Karnataka Parishad, or Andhra Parishad, Andhra Mahasabha, they demanded in mother tongue there should be education. Not that it's only in Telugu or Marathi or Kannada. In each region, mother tongue should be the medium of instruction, so that both boys and girls can be studied. The data has been given percentage-wise and number-wise and all that, schools which have been started, which has been, and all these things. But because of the time, we have to naturally reduce it to. And 2 relevant questions, and very happy.
Professor Vaikunthan, would you say that compared to some of the other larger states, larger princely states in India, Hyderabad was much more feudal? And if so, what was the reason behind it?
The reasons were those who came along with Asafjas, rulers. That means from Shekhar Kedla. They were given the political power. That means to look after, salaries have been not paid. These 2 villages, these 10 villages or 20 villages or 100 villages, they have been given. Subsequently, they started expanding and ultimately loyal to them. So therefore, naturally, as I said, the centralization of authority, they were not, in fact, going for development of the education as we could see in British India. British India, with all said and colonial masters, tried to introduce education, tried to provide some sort of medicine, and tried to provide some sort of change, exposure to the West, and ultimately to say West is more progressive than you, than the locals. And that also helped in a big way for change in British India, in a big way when I'm using the word, compared to this type of princely states. And in the princely states, again, when we compare to Baroda, Mysore, and I gave you some data about their role also, and hardly we could see this comes at more or less at the bottom of the progress, though it is one of the biggest state in the country. So Nizam and his Jagirdars or feudal system, which was responsible for suppression and the so-called bureaucratic and Jagirdari nexus, which was responsible for this. And because this the so-called bureaucracy was also partly connected with the Muslim as well as the outsiders who came from, was responsible for this type of thing. This is at least what the data speaks.
Thank you. Any other questions and comments from other participants? Yes, Kame Samson, go ahead.
Yeah. So this is regarding two words that you have used while.
We can't hear you. Please speak a bit louder.
Yeah. So this is concerning two words that you have used describing the relationship between the Indian Union and the Hyderabad state. Those two words are joining India. Joining India and the word invade. So when we use these two words, meaning Hyderabad joining India after the independence, or Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel invading Hyderabad, these two terms seem to suggest that Hyderabad was never a part of India before. So I think these two words must be carefully used. So what's your opinion on this?
I will suggest a big thing, sir.
Yeah.
You have to understand from a different angle. Because when these states have entered into alliance with the English East India Company, they were locally independent princely states. And they were sovereign in their own way. They were quarreling to protect their own lands. And then when in 1947, that means just on the eve of India's transfer, or when Britishers were leaving, some states wanted to be independent. If they are part of India, where is the question of Pakistan coming into existence? Where is the question of Bangladesh subsequently coming into existence? All this is Bharat. But at that particular point of time, and these princes, they entered into a direct dialogue and ultimately treaty with the English East India Company. Once they go out, it is autonomous. That is how Nizam tried to stick on to it and going to the UNO and other things. And if one can read the tragedy of Hyderabad, like Ali, and the other works of that particular period, you will see these are two. We accept India is a part. That means 600 and odd states are part of India as geographically, but not part of India politically also. So therefore, joining India is the right word at that particular situation, rather than telling it is independent and not joining. Word using the joining is wrong. I don't think we are right in presenting that.
You see, if I can just intervene, you see, the British were very smart people. When they did something which was in their political and imperial interest, they often did it under the subterfuge of law. So obviously these states were they were under British paramountcy,
Yes.
but at the same time they had some semblance of autonomy. Okay.
Yes.
So in a formal sense they had a certain autonomy, but the fact of the matter is that they were, for all practical purposes, under the British tutelage. They were subservient, and therefore when India was gaining independence, obviously the British raised this bogey again, that when the British paramountcy lapses, these states will have the right to become independent, which was ultimately not accepted by India, and obviously the states were asked to join either India or Pakistan. So it's a peculiar history. So the point is that after independence, we had to make a special effort to integrate all these states within the new republic. So
Yes.
the word joining is being used only in that limited sense. It is not being asserted that Hyderabad or any other state was not a part of India in a larger sense. It was a part of India in a larger sense, but in this limited sense, that term is being used. Any other question or comment? I guess there are no more questions. So thank you very much, Professor Vaikuntham, for this very interesting lecture on a subject, which you have mastered over the decades and on which you have written so much. I think that all the participants have enjoyed this lecture very much, and we have had a good discussion as well. And so thank you very much. And I thank all members of the audience also for their participation. And look
From my
forward
side also, let me explain. Thanks to for you for presiding, and the entire staff of Nehru Memorial Museum, Tinmurti, the directors, their staff, your staff, and that means the DD's staff and library and everyone. And I take this opportunity, to thank my friends, Dr. who is here and the others. In spite of this COVID and all these things, they were prepared to come and help and as an academics.
Thank
And
you.
I again profusely thank every one of you for participating, and we can continue discussion. We can supplement subsequently. We can read not only my books which have been published by Manohar. 4 books have come in series, and this also will be with you very shortly, in the sense another 2 months or 3 months, and it is open for everyone to further strengthen or make me to work more, and ultimately, if possible, do the best. Thank you very much,
Professor Vaikuntham. And obviously look forward to hearing again from you sometime on the same subject.
After completing, sir. After
Thank you.
completing my Nehru Fellowship is over. Submission is after submission, I'm a free individual. As a free individual, whenever you want, that's a different issue.
Thank
As
you.
a part of this, kindly.
Thank you once again.
Kindly, because of the environment which is there, it is not worth risking the life.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Later part we will see and how best we can cooperate.
Yes.
Thank you.